Yes, the same kind of story that seems to come down from long ago. Two friends having coffee together when something flies by their window.
Hi, I'm John Cullen. Welcome to another episode of Is This News? This is a special episode. I'm recording this on Sunday, April the 24th, 2022. And the reason this is a special episode is because we have new information coming out of China regarding the coronavirus pandemic. For those of you who aren't familiar with my work, I'm one of the pioneers of the Geographic Information System called ESRI's ARC-Info. And that's the system that Johns Hopkins has been using to track and map the pandemic. And there's new information coming out of China as of Saturday the 23rd and Sunday the 24th of 2022 that's quite important. So we're going to be taking a closer look at that in this show. I'm John Cullen. Thanks for joining. Let's get started.
And if any man's hand ever made that land, then I think it would have showed.
In this show, we're going to take a look at some of the data on the Johns Hopkins map. So we'll take a look at that. We're going to take a look at some of the other states in the United States and compare the deaths in China to states like Kentucky, for example. So Kentucky has 15,375 people dead so far in the United States after about 2 years of the pandemic. And we can sort all the states in the United States. Here's Kentucky, here's Louisiana. Louisiana has a population of about 4.6 million people. And with 4.6 million people, Louisiana has 17,000 people dead from coronavirus. And we'll be comparing that to countries like China that currently has less than 14,000 dead, but 2,000 of which have been in the last 4 weeks. We'll also be looking at the World Health Organization's map showing the data coming from China on coronavirus. Again, mapping data is one of the things that I was the pioneer of back in the 1980s when this whole concept of marrying data and maps together was first developed by the team at ESRI. So we'll look at the WHO's map, and we'll look at some of the big stories in the news right now as it pertains to coronavirus. You can find the Johns Hopkins map if you go to Drudge Report and you scroll down in the middle column. it says World Sick Map. And if you click on World Sick Map, it'll take you to the Johns Hopkins map that I use quite regularly on the show. So this is showing the global pandemic, and this is using software from a company called the SRI, system called ArcInfo, and this is a system that I helped build 34 years ago. So when we click on China on the left side, the system zooms into China and gives us China-specific data. So up top, it's telling us, according to Johns Hopkins, 13,974 people have died. 2,183 of them have been in the last 28 days, according to Johns Hopkins. So we compare this data to other sources, definitive sources. So Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, the Michael Bloomberg School of Public Health at Johns Hopkins, is considered a definitive source, as is the World Health Organization. This is the World Health Organization's COVID-19 dashboard and map. And you can click on any country like Mongolia and find out what the statistics are in Mongolia, how many people have died, how many cases there are, what the situation is currently, and you can track this week by week by week. And we can do this for any country. So we look at China. By clicking on China, we get the statistics directly from the World Health Organization. So the World Health Organization is telling us that China has just shy of 1 million confirmed cases in the last 2 years, and according to them, 14,742 deaths. And if we look down here on the right side on this chart, we see that the deaths appear to have peaked March the 7th, when they had 1,955 deaths. And they've been going down weekly since then, but they've been accumulating. But the real big story right now is the story coming out of Shanghai. And you may have seen some of these stories getting covered. This is France 24. China's censors scrub viral Shanghai lockdown video from online platforms. So there's a number of stories here talking about what's happening in Shanghai, the lockdowns in China. China COVID death toll rises as Beijing warns of grim situation. So I thought it was grim 2 years ago when we declared a global pandemic, and I think everybody else thought the same thing. This is Bloomberg's Quint, BloombergQuint.com. Shanghai reports record daily COVID deaths in current outbreak. Let's take a closer look at this. This was published by Bloomberg April 24th, so Sunday, April 24th, 2022, and updated more recently. Shanghai reported its highest number of daily COVID-19 deaths in the current outbreak as China continues to stick to its COVID zero policy with strict lockdown measures imposed in the city. The city recorded 39 fatalities for Saturday, bringing its total number of virus-related deaths to 87 since late February, according to a report on Sunday by the Shanghai Health Commission. The average age of the people who died was 78.7, and all had underlying diseases, according to the report. But the big development here is that for the past 2 years, Shanghai had less than 10 people dead. And now, according to this story, according to Bloomberg, 87 people have died. If we go to the map and we go to Johns Hopkins and we look at what does Johns Hopkins say, we can zoom in on Shanghai. And there's a little red dot here. And if I click on the little red dot in Shanghai, it should give us statistics. So according to Johns Hopkins, there are 94 people that have died with COVID or of COVID in Shanghai so far in the past 2 years. 48 of those people have been in the last 28 days. Now, for the longest time, we've been reporting here on the Johnny Hoover channel that there weren't 10 people dead in Shanghai, and there weren't 10 people dead in Beijing, and there weren't 500 dead in Hong Kong for the longest time. But recently, the outbreak seems to have reemerged in China, and we can see that on the right-hand side of the map. So there are three graphs. The red graph shows cases, the white graph shows deaths, and the green chart shows inoculations. And so it's time-based. So China appears to have started inoculations in January of 2021, give or take, according to this. And they had people dying back in the early stages of the pandemic. This is February of 2020. And then they had a bunch of people die, or they logged a bunch of people dying in April of 2020. But then there weren't that many deaths along the way here. And then something dramatic happened recently. So as of March 2022, things really just started going crazy in China. And more people have died in China since, let's see, what would this be? February of 2022. So more people have died in China in the last 8 or 10 weeks than died during the entire previous portion of the pandemic, because up until recently, there were less than 5,000 people dead in all of China. Now, they're up to 14,000, with Shanghai now at 94 people dead. That's pretty dramatic, given that just a few weeks back it was less than 10. Now, if we look at Beijing, let me scroll up here and go find Beijing, and click on Beijing, what Johns Hopkins is telling us is that Beijing still has less than 10 people dead. It says 9. So 9 total deaths. Nobody's died in the last 28 days in Beijing, and we'll see what happens there if they're able to continue to hold that at less than 10. But remarkable update that Shanghai, which was able to maintain less than 10 people dead through a good portion of the pandemic, is now reporting so many more people dead, approaching 100 people having died with COVID or from COVID. 94 people, according to Johns Hopkins. So Johns Hopkins and the WHO are usually close to one another. The reporting coming out of, Bloomberg said 87 had died, and this was published on Sunday, the 24th of April, and I'm looking at the Johns Hopkins map in real time, and it's telling us a slightly bigger number. So that is the latest update. 94 people have died in Shanghai, China from COVID-19. And I think you may be hearing this here first. I don't know if they're covering this on CNN. You'll have to check with Anderson Cooper. I'm not sure if you're going to hear about this on CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox. They've seemed to have ignored the fact that China has fewer people dead than Louisiana. So Louisiana, which doesn't have anywhere near 1.4 billion people, has 17,000 people dead. So this is the part that causes the cognitive dissonance, is when we look at these states in the United States, like South Carolina, that have more people dead than all of China. And yet the virus was called the China virus, so to speak, and it seemed like we kind of locked the world down because of what was happening in Wuhan. Yet Alabama has more people dead than Wuhan, plus Hong Kong, plus Shanghai, plus Beijing, plus everywhere in China. Alabama. Right? And this is the part that is difficult to explain, right? How a state like Virginia has more people dead than all of China. How a state like Massachusetts has more people dead than all of China. How a state like Missouri has more people dead than all of China. This is the part that causes the cognitive dissonance. And then people say, well, then China must be lying. Well, if China's lying 2+ years into the pandemic, why wouldn't the WHO put an asterisk here? And, so this is all fake data? I find that hard to believe. So they're publishing fake data at the WHO and at Johns Hopkins? That would be bizarre. So it's just interesting that the mainstream media doesn't seem to think that this is news. Now, Shanghai, interestingly, with 24.5 million people, significantly larger than New York. And yet New York City has tens of thousands of people who have died with COVID. Shanghai is 94. I'm John Cohen. Thanks for joining.
Yes, the same kind of story that seems to come down from long ago. Two friends having coffee together when something flies by their window. It might be out on that lawn, which is wide, at least half of a playing field. Because there's no explaining what your imagination can make you see and feel. Your body means nothing, you're hypnotized. Now it's not a meaningless question to ask if they've been and gone. I remember a talk about North Carolina in a strange, strange pond. You see, the sides were like glass in the thick of a forest without a road. And if any man's hand ever made that land, then I think it would have showed. And that's why it seems like a dream.